Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and today we are starting a new text, Jesus and Socrates, a dialogue in heaven. It is a modern dialogue in the sense that it has been written very recently by, of course, Dr. Pierre Grimes, the guy who wrote the philosophical midwifery book that we've been learning the art of midwifery from. Midwifery, of course, the art of how to discover, understand, and remove human problems by addressing a class of belief that causes human problems and, controls human beings' lives on a set path that we call fate, causing us to repeat our cycles of problems, failures, and negative states of mind, and acts of injustice. That root cause to that kind of negative functioning that human beings are stuck in is called a pathologos false belief, a kind of false belief about oneself and reality that is immune to evidence and reason, because that's what it does. It blocks the logos. And of course, logos involves, among other things, evidence and reason, making it a block. In other words, you can't learn it away. You have to go through a process called philosophical midwifery, and therefore making it the most important art or activity a human being, thumbs up, can engage in while they are alive. Now, we normally consider it, while it's the most important thing we can do, it's also one aspect of 4 aspects within the study of philodianoia, the new discipline that we have discovered, the love of understanding. Philosophical midwifery, of course, is center stage because that's the most important thing we can do. Discover why we have our problems, why we act in ways we don't want to act, why we seek injustice against our own interests and the interests of everybody else. But once we are free from what's false, free from our problems, what do we do with that freedom? Well, philosophy. Once we've freed ourselves from what's false about self and reality that binds us to our ignorance, we might want to figure out what is true about the nature of reality and the nature of ourselves. We do that through the same art of understanding, the same dialectic following the logos. But instead of applying it to our problems, we apply it to what's true. We do that by reading dialogues written by somebody who has gone through this process themselves. So, in other words, if you want to get to California, you get directions from someone who has been there themselves. So normally that's Socrates, the master of the logos. But another option is, turn my hat around, there we go. Option is Dr. Grimes, someone who has also mastered the logos, who rediscovered our spiritual and intellectual roots, realizing that what he has been learning in philosophical midwifery and in his understanding of the mind was also being taught by Socrates, reawakening our ancient Greek philosophical tradition, but also putting into words what Socrates didn't put into words, namely the pathologos. So one of the problems that we've been facing as a species is, my microphone down just a little bit more. While Socrates himself describes himself as a philosophical midwife, with the art of midwifery to help human beings remove their problems, he didn't write anything down. His student Plato wrote down things for him, and of course he watched his beloved teacher be murdered by human beings in the government. Human beings in the government who said, well, that's not the official religion of Homer, so we are going to use that as an excuse to kill you, because, well, we know the reason why. Pathologos, the ignorance that keeps human beings in a level of evolution of barbarians, savages, that kind of false belief that served an evolutionary function a million years ago no longer serves us. And what it does is it is an opposition to mind. So here is Socrates, a champion of mind, helping people understand problems and use their mind to know their highest purpose and functioning. Here is this guy going around being the best person ever. And of course, as savages who have not yet gone through that process, these people thought, well, let's kill him. Why? They didn't know why, but the reason we know is, of course, the pathologos is what binds us to a battle or war against mind itself. So Plato, watching that play out in front of him, might have had a few problems with Homer, the official religion that was being used as the excuse to murder his teacher. And of course, we are still in that game. We are still how do I hide that? We still think life is we approach life as looking for excuses to play out the tyranny done to us in childhood. So we look for people slipping up so we can crush them. It is disgusting, but that's what punishment is. That's what our legal system is based on, our schooling system, any sort of thing that's based on rewards and punishments, our economic system. It's all based on immaturity and irrationality, looking for excuses to abuse our fellow man instead of what we should be doing, looking for times we missed the mark, specifically to learn. We're here to learn, because we all get a pathologos. It's part of being here. Let me just remove this. I've got a whole new setup. So we all get pathologos, and our purpose here is to seek our highest goals, find where we're missing the mark, and use those as clues to reflect upon our problem so we can free ourselves from it. So that's what we should be doing, but instead we are still at a period of history where people are stuck to their pathologos and instead want to hurt other human beings, acting irrationally and immaturely to ourselves and our fellow man. That's where we are. And as a result of that, Plato might have had a bit of a bee in his bonnet about philosophical midwifery, which is of course something that Homer showed. And Homer taught the story of Achilles as somebody going through dream analysis and philosophical midwifery in order to uncover and remove that pathologos and become a good person. So if that was the justification for killing Plato's teacher, that might have been one of the reasons why Plato never wrote anything down about philosophical midwifery and tried to find another way of removing what blocks us from the logos, what blocks us from understanding and growth. So that's one of the issues that we're exploring here today. Socrates and Jesus didn't write anything down. They left it for their followers to write down what they spoke about. And as a result, we had 1,500 years without philosophical midwifery, or more. Yeah, more closer to 2,500 years without what's most important for human beings to do. Bringing us to this point in history where we still are savages towards ourselves. We still have fascism, capitalism. We still somehow we think understanding is important for doctors and mechanics and airplane pilots. We don't think understanding is important for priests and kings, people who have the most power. They don't have to have understanding. They can just function according to belief. And of course, as we've been learning, beliefs are what cause problems. Our evolution is from belief into understanding, because beliefs have nothing to do with truth. And the pathologos belief in particular is directly opposed to truth. And at the time of recording, we are going through the case studies And subject B, as we're reading, is somebody going through midwifery, realizing that even though he knows it's false, what his dad told him, that he can't work on small things with his lawnmower, he still believes it to be true. His whole life has been in chains. He hasn't ever been able to do what he wants to do. His relationships have been bad, and his idea of love has been sick, simply because of this teaching that he believes to be true, even though he knows it's wrong. So beliefs are what cause human problems. What we are learning is how to transition from a belief way of making sense of the world, the savage caveman, to understanding. And when everybody realizes how fun and great and wonderful understanding is, we won't allow the most important positions in our world, kings and priests, to lack a model of understanding and lack the imperative to benefit their subjects. A doctor must benefit his patients. A pilot must benefit the people he's in charge of on his plane. But for some reason, politicians or kings and clergy have no obligation to help anyone. And so the people who are most imprisoned by their pathologos have a job. So yeah, you can do this. You can genocide people, or you can enforce capitalism where everybody suffers just for the reason the billionaires can get richer, or similar for clergy. You don't have to have any understanding. You don't have to benefit anybody, but you can abuse children by saying if they don't obey you, they suffer in hell for eternity. Of course, insane and very, very harmful, but that's where we are. We have to recognize the value of understanding and also see how beliefs cause our problems. And that also might involve tracing back our historical lineage to Socrates. If Socrates was telling us all this, and he himself had teachers, Diotima from the Symposium and Parmenides from the Parmenides, we're going to get into the Symposium too on the channel soon. If he grew up in a culture that was familiar with midwifery and had people like these guys running around, guys and girls running around, where do we drop the ball? And of course, we can trace it back maybe to Socrates not having written anything down and us killing him before he did. Similarly, in the class of belief, we have Jesus, who, again, didn't write anything down. And there are many different kinds of accounts of his teachings that are very, very different, written by people who weren't him. So, other human beings who themselves have pathologos and who themselves are at various levels of understanding. Not everybody is the smartest person in the world, especially 2,000 years ago, and especially without philosophical midwifery. So a whole bunch of people writing a whole bunch of different things about what Jesus said or believed or thought or taught. Some champion understanding. Some talk about the difference between understanding and belief and how tragic belief is, like Mark, for instance, the Gospel of Mark. And some are completely the other way and say, no, understanding is the devil, just believe me, like Paul. Very, very different people having very, very different accounts of somebody who himself didn't write anything down himself. So, two very prominent figures in human history and in terms of how humans think about themselves, the divine and the world, both of whom didn't write anything down. But what if they met up in heaven to discuss their life and discuss this fact? That's what we're reading today. Now, the author, of course, is, as we said, a master of the Logos and somebody who probably has understood Socrates the most out of everybody, taught it for 40, 50, 60 years, but also was a head teacher at the College of Religious Sciences in America, taught about various religions for a very long time, including Christianity. He's I'm not going to go into his credentials. You can look up the history of Pierre Grimes and his understanding in the just briefly, in the College of Religious Sciences, if you were to become a priest or an imam or a rabbi, or within that educational process, you'd have to go through him, because he had a fantastic understanding of all of that, simply because he had an understanding of the logos and the pathologos. So taught for many years, high positions of authority within various colleges designed to study religious science, religion. Rediscovered philosophical midwifery, all the good stuff. And everything else you want to learn about him, you can learn about him. We might actually have it in the in the forward of the book. So, with all that as a bit of an intro, let's all jump into reading for ourselves. Press the button. No. Here we are. Now, we have the book here. And it's supposed to be showing up on this ancient tablet. Let's make sure that it does. Parchment. There we go. Hooray. Oh, my soundboard is broken again. Oh, well. Jesus and Socrates, a dialogue in heaven. Pierre Grimes, PhD. Forward by Jeffery Mishlove. If you like to watch something nice online, check out Jeffery Mishlove's interviews with Pierre Grimes on New Thinking Aloud YouTube channel on YouTube. That's a fantastic introduction into philosophy, into midwifery, and into the sorts of ideas we're going to be discussing here. Jeffery Mishlove, New Thinking Aloud, interviews with Pierre Grimes. Fantastic stuff. About the author. Maybe we should read that. No, let's go through from the beginning. Forward by Maria and Juan Balboa, translators of Plato's Parmenides, Logos, Analogos, and Anti-Logos. Oh, interesting. So, we talk about we talked about the four aspects of Philodianoia that we do here. Learning understanding and how to apply it to solving human problems, number one, philosophical midwifery. Understanding applied to discovering the truth about the nature of self, reality, the divine, and the meaning of life, which you might even say would be to master Philodianoia. We apply the dialectic, number three, to our dreams. Dream analysis, that's your guide for both. And fourth of all, why not use your understanding and insight to in your art, in how you create, and how you share with the world. Mythology, midwifery, philosophy, dream analysis, and mythology. Sharing it. So, in that realm of philosophy, the application of understanding to finding the truth, we do on Maria and Juan's Balboa's translations of Socrates, because this is the only translation of Socrates, of Plato's dialogues describing Socrates' talks, that have been accurate. All of the past translation have been garbage. It makes us say, boo. Okay. makes us say, oops. Off, all of the problems are happening on my soundboard. So, people who have themselves gone through midwifery with Pierre Grimes and have been learning the logos and have been able to translate the actual ancient Greek, helping us to be able to read what we've been blocked from reading for more than 1,000 years. So they have a forward here. And then we have a second forward written by, I don't know. Oh, this might be worth reading because somebody finishing up their graduate work in philosophy at Holy Apostates College and Seminary discovers Pierre Grimes. Gravature, so somebody from a Catholic background. Who is this person doing this forward? My God, he writes his whole life story. Okay, Dorian Hunter. All right. And then we have the introduction by Mishlove. Before reading, let's start here. Before reading Pierre Grimes' brilliant manuscript, I had imagined that a conversation in the afterlife between Jesus and Socrates might reveal two very different personalities at odds with each other. I was pleasantly surprised, however, to discover that the former US President George Bush may have been onto something when he referred to Jesus as his favorite philosopher. Okay, Jeffrey. For Pierre has revealed the For Pierre has revealed the philosophical basis underlying the actual teachings of the original Nazarene from Nazareth. What are their differences? In Pierre's presentations, the similarities between Jesus and Socrates are stronger than I imagined. Oh, do we have a gasp?
Wow.
One might even say that Jesus was actually a philosopher, says Jeffery Mishlove. Is it possible after more than 2,000 years for us to know what either Jesus or Socrates really taught? Perhaps not, but it makes sense to study the interpreters of these men carefully and to notice the difference between them. This is precisely what Pierre has done. Are the different presentations of the teachings of Jesus and of Socrates in basic agreement concerning the main ideas of each individual? Pierre points out that in the case of Jesus, there is a clear demarcation between the teachings of Paul and those of Jesus as found in the Nag Hammadi texts. Hooray from Nag Hammadi texts. Do we have a cheer? Okay. Hooray for the Nag Hammadi texts. As well as some of the Gospels. So those were the more recent discoveries of some of the Gospels or writings about Jesus that had been buried by the church. When the church decided, oh, let's pick these dudes. We like what they say about how people should believe us, but let's get rid of all these other books. But they were found again in the Nag Hammadi text. And in a lot of those texts, they described Jesus talking about dun dun dun. The importance of moving from belief to understanding. Yay. Great. What we have been discovering for ourselves in our work on this channel, reading together, is the whole reason we're here and the stage of evolution where we're at. Moving from belief, which binds us to fervent loyalty to dictators and tyrants, and especially the ones that looked most beautiful when we were young and taught us fundamentally false things about ourselves that limit our lives. The movement from belief to understanding that everyone can share in and can be applied to ourselves. We can understand ourselves, we can understand reality, we can understand the divine, and we can understand even what's beyond experience, beyond even the enlightenment experience. Understanding is where it's at, yo. Hooray. Understanding is where it's at. Philodianoia, love of understanding. So, Pierre points out in the case of Jesus and of Socrates, in the case of Jesus, there's a clear demarcation between the teachings of Paul, that guy used to go around killing everyone and tell everyone to believe him, and those of Jesus, found in the Nag Hammadi text, as well as in some of the Gospels. How similar are the teachings of Jesus and the contemporary practice of Christianity? Pierre suggests that the Pauline doctrines of Christianity are antithetical to the actual teachings of Jesus. So maybe Jesus also discovered what we have discovered for ourselves. It's important to remove beliefs that are wrong and cause harm, and instead develop into understanding so we can see the truth and use that truth to benefit. Is that what Jesus was saying? Maybe. But it's suggested here that Paul is saying the opposite. Hey, don't think for yourself, you idiots. Just believe me and make me the ruler and king, and just believe. Believe somebody else, you idiot. Says Paul, what does it mean to die in order to save others from their sins? Pierre argues that it is not helpful to protect others from the consequences of their own behavior. Oh, and it looks like I'm a bit off the page here. Pick something. Okay, I'm back. Not helpful to protect others from the consequences of their own behavior. He prefers a philosophical approach wherein one comes to understand. Ooh. What do we think of understanding, kids? We love it. It's better to understand. Interesting. And even make amends for one's mistakes. Ooh. Okay, How does Gnostic Christianity relate to those traditions? Gnostic Christianity emphasizes the ability of the individual to achieve gnosis. Gnosis, what we have been learning recently as nous, or that fourth cognitive function in Plato's divided line we've been looking at in midwifery. Image thinking, people who think they're thinking, but really they're just moved by shapes and colors. Belief, which is the cause of image thinking, but also the end result. Most people end up just thinking in a way that justifies the beliefs that they already carry. That's demonstrated very clearly in what we have today as debates. You come in with some dumb beliefs, you think you are engaging in reason, and thinking, but no, you're just vomiting up some thoughts that just prove the beliefs you already have, keeping us blocked. Because beliefs are wrong. Sometimes they might hit the mark a little bit, but almost always they are wrong. Interesting. Particularly pathologos beliefs, prejudice beliefs, and supernatural beliefs that can't be proven. We looked at the 6 kinds of beliefs in chapter 3. Axioms, which are self-evident, 1 and 1 is 2. Scientific beliefs, yeah, we got enough evidence and reason to go by. Simple beliefs, I don't really have enough, but I don't really care. Supernatural beliefs. There can't be any evidence and reason. Can't prove Mary was a virgin. Prejudice beliefs, opposed to evidence and reason. That's why it's prejudice. There is enough reason and evidence to show that your generalized statements or beliefs are false. And pathologos, that are completely blocked from evidence and reason, so even evidence and reason can't change your mind, whilst also being about yourself, so you identify with them. So it becomes what controls your life. So, image thinking belief on the other side of that evolutionary line that we have to jump if we want to be happy and save our species. 1, 2, image thinking belief is 3 and 4, dianoia and nous. Understanding. So we want to jump from belief to understanding. And understanding can be applied to nous, just like image thinking is applied to belief. Understanding is applied to reality. And a reality that is knowable in an experience called nous. Or ousia, the capacity of your mind to turn about and know itself completely. That is also called gnosis, which is nous with a G on the front, because you're fancy. Sometimes it's cool to be fancy. Throw a G on there. G. Hey. Don't boo my G thing. What is that? Gesture? Posture? Gang sign? Gnosis. So, Gnostic Christianity emphasizes the ability of the individual to achieve gnosis. In that sense, it is akin to the goal of enlightenment in Eastern religions. So we also recognize this experience of mind knowing itself as the second hypothesis. And you can take all the second hypothesis of Parmenides, the 9 hypothesis that outlines the stages of human development for individuals and for cultures. And for each of them, you could point to a spiritual tradition that's represented by it. And the noesis experience of knowledge is traditionally the highest experience in Taoism, the one with that yin-yang symbol. It is also akin to the Socratic ideal, often expressed as know thyself. That's what knowledge is. That's what it means to know. Not a belief. A direct apprehension of reality itself or mind itself, knowing itself completely at all points, making it the greatest possible experience. So it's described in the greatest possible words: beauty itself, justice itself, bliss, knowingness, the truth about reality. And philosophy is the study of that. So you can use understanding to remove our beliefs, but once free of our beliefs in Minbiferi, you can use understanding to know knowledge. What are the practices that Jesus and Socrates each recommend? Pierre suggests that the practice most recommended by Jesus himself was the careful study of his biblical parables. There are about 30 of them. What are the roles of analogy and allegory in the teachings of Jesus and Socrates and Jesus? So, study parables, which use analogy and allegory. Similar to Socrates, Pierre argues that the parables of Jesus are critical to an understanding of his teachings. But these are rarely emphasized in Christian religious practices. And we know the word religion means to be bound by belief. So this activity of doing what Jesus apparently was saying, apply your own thinking to puzzling through analogies, to solve puzzles and mysteries, like we do in philosophy, like we do in midwifery, like we do in dream analysis, like human beings are literally here to do, the hero's journey. That's not belief. That's you're thinking for yourself. You're growing for yourself. You're understanding for yourself. You're opening up your own insights into nous for yourself. None of that is believing someone else. someone with the big hat who says, gimme, 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 I want your money. Oh, I want your land. Oh, I want your women's and your children's. That person. It's not just, and this particular religion, it's all belief-based systems. Be it MAGA, be it Nazism, be it any old religion, because the word religion means to be bound by belief. And for some reason, have the logos and the fact that we are here to learn how important the logos is. For that reason, we still have a profession for the most terrible, ignorant people. They can become a president or a prime minister or a politician, or they can become a leader of a cult or religion. Because there's no need for understanding there. Well, I believe in guns, and I believe everyone has a right to guns. I believe in heaven, and I believe there's a monster in the sky that wants to kill you. I believe. Believe me. Well, I take your money. So belief, religion, religios, to be bound by a saving belief. So, in religious practices, there isn't much of an emphasis put on what apparently Jesus was saying. Apply your own mind to understanding some problems, some parables, analogy and allegory. Socrates, of course, makes ample use of similar analogies and allegories, such as the famous allegory of the cave. Ooh, we love that one. The cave allegory is the story of somebody going from the cave of ignorance tied by image thinking and beliefs through a process of understanding to the real world. The outside world, outside the cave. From Socrates, Pierre derives a practice of paying attention to dreams. Dreams. We learn dream analysis here. What role do dreams play in religion and philosophy? Pierre argues that both philosophy and religion have either ignored or downplayed their crucial importance. Not on this channel. Currently it's just my dreams because on Twitch, Asmongold is a guy who has 100,000 viewers, or like 50,000. And there's another guy, Hassan Piker, he has 50,000. And there's going to be an email sent that they all have to come to my channel because what I'm doing is better and more fun. And we have fun sound drops like this one.
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
See, Asmongold's audience and Hassan's audience would both love that. Hassan because it's Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report, and Asmongold's audience because it's funny and naughty. So, until those 100,000 people come over to the channel, it's just me and a dozen people in the Discord. So when we have more people, we'll focus more on dream analysis. But at the moment, it's just this guy doing his dreams every now and again. But we apply everything we're learning about the dialectic in our work in midwifery and philosophy to dreams to see if we can create a model and paradigm for dream analysis ourselves, and maybe write that book, the book that is yet to be written. The formalization of dream analysis, which is just the same dialectic that we learn here, the love of understanding. So, what role do dreams play in religion and philosophy? Pierre argues that both have either ignored or downplayed their crucial importance. How similar are the Hellenic and Judaic traditions? Hellenic is the ancient Greek one, the one based on understanding, and midwifery with Achilles. To what extent have they influenced each other? Judaism, Christianity, and Hellenism have been intertwined for centuries. It's fun to have a look at the interplay between those two ways of thought playing out in the Gospel of Mark. If you are that way inclined, if you want to spend a day doing that, you can have some fun. Because some people say that the Gospel of Mark is a dramatic representation of this interwovingness of Hellenic and Judaic traditions. One based on belief, one based on understanding, of course. And you know how significant that interplay is. It's literally why we're alive. If you're alive at this point of history in this species, that's what we're here for. In my opinion, it's just the way it is. But of course, understanding why it's not an opinion is part of it. Because opinion is belief. We want understanding. We want the truth. So how similar are the Hellenic and Judaic Christian traditions? To what extent have they influenced each other? Judaism, Christianity, and Hellenism have been intertwined for centuries. It is fair to say that despite their differences, they are intimately interwoven with each other. How similar are the teachings of Socrates and the contemporary practice of philosophy? Are we even doing philosophy? On this channel, we've been realizing that what we've been taught as philosophy is the exact fucking opposite of philosophy. What Socrates calls philodoxia, the love of opinions. Kant's opinions and Hegel's opinions, which is just image thinking that philosophers use in debates to justify the beliefs that they have not challenged from their childhood, justify their ignorance. Socrates says that's in what we read in the Phaedo and the Meno, what we're reading ourselves together and seeing for ourselves, is the opposite of philosophy, which is the love of wisdom, which is the experience of nous, coupled with dianoia, which is the exact opposite side of the divided line. So we've been sold a lie about what philosophy is, image thinking to justify beliefs, when what Socrates says, hey, no, that's not philosophy. Philosophy means philosophia, the love of wisdom. Wisdom requires this gnostic experience of knowing yourself completely. Why would a philosopher ignore the highest expression of mind? Many people have had that experience. Not hard to find counts of them. Maybe you've had a couple yourself. Why would you ignore that? The most profound knowingness. And why would you ignore understanding to just believe Kant or just believe Hegel? Is it something to do with professors professing the teaching from the head of the college lecture theater preaching, which is different from reading the text for yourself, looking for analogies to discover questions, and solving those puzzles, which is part of the hero's journey, the love of understanding. Hey, do you want to just hear some old dude tell you what the Christopher Nolan's Inception movie is about? Or do you want to see it for yourself and discover that there are puzzles and have fun talking to your friends about those puzzles to see if you can solve them for yourself, that use analogy to present those puzzles? What would you rather do? See the movie yourself or hear someone profess? Different between real philosophy and what we are told is philosophy nowadays. Which is why those 100,000 people from Asmongold and Hassan are coming to hear. That's awesome to learn. Isn't that important? The most important thing we can do here is go from belief to understanding, and that's fun. It's watching the movie for yourself. It's uncovering puzzles for yourself. It's the hero's journey. Rather than just listening to other people preach their own beliefs, which are their own problems, their own ignorance. Everyone, when you come here, subscribe so I can pay my greedy landlord. So, how similar are the teachings of Socrates and the contemporary practice of philosophy? Thankfully, we have the Balboa translation, so we can answer that question for ourselves. And we have been on this channel. Philosophy today has moved far away from the Socratic dictum of know thyself. He said it more simpler than I just said it. How do Jesus and Socrates each relate to the notion of divine illumination, seeing the movie for yourself, experiencing this for yourself, recognizing the nature of the true nature of self, of reality and mind yourself. Ooh. The experience Achilles had in the Iliad after he went through midwifery and dream analysis. What's called the brilliant light of being, or the experience of the good in the Republic. Not the good itself, not the cause of the good, but the experience of the good, which gives you the model of beauty in the Symposium and justice in the Republic. That we have been able to see for ourselves because we didn't have to just believe anyone, because we could actually read the Greek ourselves. Thanks to, again, Maria and Juan Balboa's work in translating the book accurately, and also keeping the Greek underneath so we can look at it ourselves, which is important to solve some puzzles and to see some puzzles. Oh, that looks like the word logos. I can see it in the Greek. So, what we are learning here about philosophy is very different from what we are taught today in a different tradition that has been bereft, been void of understanding and thinking for ourselves, and it's just been based on believing, well, bastards or people who are stuck in their ignorance. Because one of the reasons we haven't had, right, no good deed goes unpunished. Yes. Exactly. That's the life of Socrates, isn't it? The person who helped us the most. Oh, thanks for the follow as well. Aaron. Yes. Which is funny because in the apology or the defense of philosophy, when Socrates is on trial, they asked him, what punishment would you give yourself for what you've done? And Socrates says, well, free room and board forever in the in like the best place in town. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but not the Acropolis. Oh, Jesus, I'm gonna have to look it up. At the Prytaneum. In other words, Socrates is saying the Prytaneum, where you have to win the Olympics to get one night there. My whole life I should live there, because I am doing the ultimate good. Giving you what you need to A, philosophical midwifery, discover the root cause of your problems that have been binding you to your ignorance, injustice, and suffering. Philosophical midwifery, understanding applied to removing what's false. And I've been giving you these puzzles, these analogies, these awesome Christopher Nolan movies, these analogies with mysteries that if you apply yourself to them, you also develop understanding, but applied to the truth that can awaken that experience of noesis or gnosis or nous. But you're not just having a one-off trip. You got there through understanding so you can make sense of the experience. Just like if you go see an American football game, it would help if you had some understanding of the rules of the game, of how it's played. Otherwise, it could just be an experience that you are overwhelmed by and you forget straight away. So he's giving us what we need to do our purpose here, fulfill our destiny, achieve the meaning of life. Often in cinema, it's presented as a turducken, not turducken. That's a turkey and a duck and a chicken. A MacGuffin. Like the MacGuffin is the main character has to find the meaning of life, but it's not. But people think, oh, no one actually knows that. It's just a thing that propels the character forward while he finds his real purpose in the film, to fall in love or whatever. But no, that's not true. You can know the meaning of life and understand it and verify it in your own experience of noesis and realize it's what benefits everyone. So it's universal and beneficial. So it's a principle that everyone can base their life around. So it's not just the meaning of your life. the meaning of all life. And then you go one step further and say, well, actually, all intelligent beings who develop the ability to think through language and self-reflect will eventually realize the significance of beliefs that bind you to ignorance and pain and fascism. I believe in Hitler. And the benefit of understanding in removing problems and finding truth. And uncovering the meaning of your dream. A guide for both. So therefore, it's not just the meaning of your life, it's all sentient beings. Right. And understanding that people who are bound by a love of fame, philotimos, the timocratic soul, or a love of wealth or money, philoklimatos, are going to be bound in the lower level of evolution. These are physical things. Life is about manipulating people, get all the stuff, get all the money and the fame. Capitalism, fascism. Or life is about moving from belief to understanding to be able to solve problems, create harmony within your soul, create harmony within your relationships, and create harmony within our species. A harmony that is able to address with understanding our problems, like going to a doctor, but also use that freedom from problems to find our highest nature, purpose, and cause. After you go to the doctor, not the ideal of the body, you have to go to a personal trainer to get in shape. Midwifery and philosophy. Both use understanding, both use the dialectic, so there's only one game in town, philodianoia, the love of understanding. Philotimos, the love of honor or fame. I want to be famous. I want to be Instagram famous. I want to get all the ratios and the clicks. Philoklimatos, love of wealth or money. Capitalist oligarchs. Or philodianoia, the love of dianoia, a kind of understanding that can solve problems caused by beliefs and address these analogies and puzzles that can awaken your own insight or noesis into the truth about yourself, the divine, and reality. But because you got there through dianoia, you can make sense of it, you can integrate it, and you can help others through that journey yourself, creating a very, very wonderful world. How do Jesus and Socrates each relate to the notion of divine illumination? This notion is central to the teachings of both individuals. And that's interesting because, of course, we see the role of the brilliant light of being as central in the Symposium and central in the Republic, even to the point where we don't like it because he says, hey, this experience of divine illumination has to have a cause. And in the Republic, Glaucon goes, what's the cause, Socrates? And Socrates says, no, not for you. Not for you, not yet. And we get mad and we say, no, Socrates, don't tell us about divine illumination. Tell us about the cause of it. The self-good, the good itself, or the one itself. Not the experience of oneness or the experience of ultimate goodness. What's the self that's beyond it? So it's very clear that it's even to our dismay sometimes. Of course, we do go beyond the Republic when we move into the Parmenides. So he's not leaving us in the lurch, but he does give us a puzzle in the Republic and the Symposium. So very clear to see the divine illumination is central to the teachings, puzzles of Socrates. Harder to see within the teachings of Jesus because, of course, people like Paul have tried to discount that because divine illumination is something you experience for yourself, whereas belief doesn't have a feeling, doesn't have an experience. It makes you a slave to whoever you're believing. Belief is believing somebody else. So you don't get to go to the party. you hear that person talk about what it's like to be rich. Hey, the party was really good on Thursday. Can I go, sir? No, you must just believe me. That's how you get to heaven. But I want to experience heaven. Shut up. Okay, so if this is the case, if what Jeffrey is saying about what we will read in the book, that we will find that this experience of noesis or divine illumination is also central within the teachings of Jesus, that's so important. Because maybe we could bring philosophy and Christianity together. Or maybe we can see that we've been lied to and we don't have to just go along with our ignorance anymore. Or maybe we can get new insight in ourselves into what really was being said about this divine illumination experience, which isn't really highlighted or talked about on church on Sunday. So, interesting introduction there by Jeffery Mishlove, host of New Thinking Aloud YouTube channel. Check out that YouTube channel. I've only watched one category of interviews where he interviews Pierre Grimes. So Jeffery Mishlove, there's his name there. New Thinking Aloud. Interviews with Pierre Grimes. Check it out. Have fun. And next time we will jump into the chapter. Is there a chapter? Next time we'll start on the text itself. Hope you're excited. I hope you got puzzles. And I hope your dreams tonight will guide you to a sense of wonder about this text for next time when we jump on in. Thank you so much for joining me. Feel free to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can follow in Twitch and chat with us in real time on either YouTube or Twitch. And if you want notifications when we go live, you can join our Discord. And I will see you. Oh, and you can donate to the channel below if you want to as well. And I will see you in the next one. And play exit music, okay? There you go. See you in the next one.